Anything you put your mind to, you accomplish. And you never back down cause you deserve it. The light shines in you cause you're the realest. And you walk by faith, you're optimistic. You inspire me, girl, you inspire me. You're so inspirational. Inspirational.
Welcome back to Your Inspirational. My name is Formika Sturdivant, and I have with me today Miss Doris Barren. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and share my passion with you and whoever is looking at us.
So she's a wife, mother, and author. So she's going to give us a little bit behind, what she does in the background and how she's helping other women with childcare and so many other things, because you go different places.
It's been quite a journey. Not only am I a wife and a mother, I'm also a grandmother.
Okay.
And a great-grandmother.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. One of my granddaughters just recently had a little boy called Kamari. He's about 6 months old now, so he's our sixth great-grandchild, and just a treasure, really a treasure. The only problem is they don't live here in this area with me, so I miss not being able to see them and hold them like you always want to. But we stay in touch. And we do the best we can. Calls. Oh my God, video calls, Zoom, text messages, phone calls. I talk to somebody on my three daughters every day, practically. Oh, wow. If I'm not hitting one, I'm hitting the other two.
Yeah. So, with being a mother, grandmother, what is the most important thing that you teach to your children and grandchildren?
Oh, several things, really. First of all, kindness. But not just to everybody, but also to yourself. Yeah. Be kind to yourself first. And also, your self-worth, your self-esteem are critical, especially for our young ladies, our young mothers. I try to make sure that they always keep themselves as part of the priorities that they have as a parent, and especially as a mother, and I'm sure you know that too. We tend to forget ourselves because we're so busy trying to make sure everybody else is okay. And that's not okay. But it took me some years to learn that myself. So over time, through trial and error, as with most other parents, I've learned a lot. I've done a lot of research. Much of it is showing up in my book and the accompanying guide, where I talk about mindset. And I began to really focus on that a few years back when I started substitute teaching in the Birmingham, Alabama, and the Lead City school systems. And in my interactions with many of the students, and this goes from pre-K all the way through high school, there were instances where I would run into students who were, doing the things that students do, children do, misbehaving, taking advantage of the substitute teacher, and it took me some time to understand exactly what was going on with these students. And it finally hit me. What I am seeing on the outside, those behaviors that I'm seeing, are what I would call a wake-up call for all of us, the adults in their lives. Many times, these students would act out. And I began to realize that wasn't the problem. There was something going on inside. I had to learn to look behind that behavior to see what was driving that student. In many instances, it's because they don't know how to express their feelings. And so what they would do is act out. Much of that was to get attention. Much of it was to, I think, let go of some of whatever the issues are that they were dealing with at home. So I had to start looking beyond that. And that became, among other things, as a parent, that became the focus for my book, which I actually had begun writing, maybe 4 years ago. But, you start something and then you put it down. I don't have time.
Yeah.
It's just not there.
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah.
However, God has a way of telling you when to start something.
Mm-hmm.
He put me in a position where I didn't have a choice.
Oh, wow.
At least that's the way I felt about
Yeah.
it. During the pandemic, we were all locked down.
Mm-hmm.
And there was very little that we could do beyond just moving around the house because you couldn't get outside. So that's when I think he was waking me up to say, okay, now's the time.
Okay.
Now's the time to get serious about this book.
Yeah.
And so I started looking at it again. I went back to my old Word documents that I had started on a couple of years before that, and I pulled it out and I started looking at it, and I realized, okay, this is what I need to write about, mindset, and how our mindset as parents, guardians, grandparents, any adult that has the ability to influence our children as they're growing into adulthood.
Correct.
Our mindset often becomes their mindset, even though we don't often realize that's what we're doing. We're passing it on to them. That's why so many things become intergenerational, because of the things that I'm doing unconsciously, in many cases, pass on to my children. That's where substance abuse comes from. That's where spousal abuse comes from. That's where misbehavior in our children come from. Much of that is passed on, even though we may not do it intentionally. So that's when I began to realize how being a parent has got to be intentional. You've got to think ahead. As a matter of fact, oftentimes when I look at how I want to say some of this, there are two things that come out periodically throughout the book. Our children learn what they live every day. Begin with the end in mind. Where do you want your children to be when they become adults? And what are you teaching them right now in order to get there? It's like anything else. When I was in the corporate world, I was in information systems for quite some number of years. So project plans were part of our life. We had to create a project plan for whatever the new system was that we were creating. So that meant we had to have an outcome that we were working towards. Begin with the end in mind. We had to figure out where we are today to fill out what the gaps are going to be, to fill in to get to that outcome. Well, it's the same thing in life. It's the same thing in parenting. When you think about what you want to end up with, and you look at where you are now, it's a lot easier to figure out what you need to do to get there. Well, if you don't do that, anything is okay. If you don't have a path, if you don't have a plan, anything that happens is, well, it may not be okay, but that's what's going to happen. So that's one of the things that led to the book, too. We have to think about what we are as parents and any other adults who are influencing our children. What are we doing to help them get to where they need to be as productive, positive-minded adults? And that's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen just because that's what we want to happen. It happens because we make it happen. We do the things, we perform in ways that let our children know how they need to perform. In other words, we are their first, as their parents and other influences in their lives. You, your husband, are your children's first and most important role model. They are watching every move, everything you say, whether you know it or not. And they don't forget. Children are very smart. They're very intuitive. They may not be able to interpret everything they see or hear, but they don't forget it. I can think back to things that my mother used to say to me. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but anyway, I can remember some of the things that she said back when I was a kid that didn't really resonate for me until I became an adult. And then I realized, okay, that's what she was talking about. But look how many years I had to go by before I figured that out. We don't have to let our children wait that long. We can teach them as we go and make sure that they understand what's happening. As I'll give you a good example, and this is not a good one, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Well, decision making.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about that a lot in the book as well, because so many of the decisions that not only we make, but our children make,
Yeah.
we don't think ahead. Well, what is this going to do if I do this?
Yeah.
What's going to happen if I do that?
Yeah.
Who am I going to impact? There's a chart in my book where I ask a series of questions when a person is trying to make a very important decision. Go down that chart and ask yourself those questions about whatever that decision is you're just about to make. If you answer yourself honestly, there are things that you may or may not do that you might have started to do otherwise. There's another chapter that talks about don't throw the message out because you don't like the messenger. It's the message that's important, regardless of who's bringing that message to you. But we need to teach our children that too, and ourselves.
Yeah.
But getting back to what I was going to say, earlier today when I was getting ready to come over, I ran across an article in the Trustfield News, which really broke my heart.
Okay.
There's a young football player who had just made it to the team. I'm not going to say for sure which team. I think it was Alabama, but I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly. But anyway, he was in the car with a friend. He was driving. He had just gotten this new car. 19 years old. The cops saw him driving too fast, got behind him, and he took off. Well, eventually they found him, and the officer that stopped him let him know that he was driving too fast. As it turns out, his friend, and I'll say this with quote marks, his friend had enough marijuana in the car to be considered distribution versus just personal use. And he had a gun in the car. The problem that I'm trying to get to is this. When we teach our children how to make good decisions and how to choose this is what I call choose your heroes wisely. Not everybody's going to be in your corner when they see you succeeding. There are always going to be others who are either standing on the sidelines waiting for opportunities to stop you or to put you in a position where you make a bad decision just so that you can keep their friendship. But guess what happens? You end up screwing up everything. Now, he worked all his young life to get where he was. He made one bad decision. Now he's suspended. And it's really sad because it didn't have to happen. But oftentimes it does because our children haven't been taught how to distinguish between what I call their inspirers and their detractors. And there's a chart in there about that too. That's when it becomes really critical because they've worked so hard to get where they are. They finally made it. And they're celebrating with their so-called friends. But you can always tell who your real friends are if you know what to look for. And one of them is, what are they doing with their lives? Are they doing anything positive? No. So you better be careful with that. They'll smile in your face. You know there's a song called Smile in Your Face and Stab You in the Back. There you go. I have a couple of examples of that in the book. Last night I was looking at the NFL draft. And I'm not trying to think of his name now. The quarterback from Alabama went with the first round to, I forgot which team he went with, but the thing that I'm trying to get to is this. He worked hard. He knew how to get what he wanted. He was patient, he was positive, and he was smart. He didn't interact with those people who were going to try to hold him back. That's the kind of thing that our young people need to understand. There's not always going to be somebody there to stand up and work with you or to support you. That happens. I mean, it's just the way it is. The other thing I look at is when we do things ourselves, do we recognize how our children are interpreting what we're doing?
Mm.
How are they interpreting what we're saying? What kind of culture do we have in the home that allows our children to know that they can come to us and air their feelings, crying, whatever the case may be, anger, whatever the case may be, knowing that we have a culture in this home that allows them to be very open and authentic with their feelings and not feel like they're going to be punished for it. That's what I call the home culture. What kind of culture have you created for your children? That's the thing that we do. They don't create that culture. We do. That's in the book as well. We talk about that in chapter 2. Walk a mile in my shoes. In fact, there are a number of chapters in here that actually came from my own daughters. One of them was called "Practice What You Preach." I wonder if she was trying to tell me something. I don't know. But it was a great chapter for me to put in. So I created it, and there are 12 chapters in the book.
Okay.
The first one is, we are what we think. And believe me, that's true. The research and my own experience tells us that we are what we think. Our mindset drives everything that we do. It drives our actions, our behaviors, how we see ourselves in the world, how we interact with other people. And there's another saying that I wanted to get out as well. We get what we attract. And what does that mean? The personality and the mindset that you put out to the world is going to resonate for somebody. Now, if it's positive and going forward, that's the kind of attraction you're going to see in those cases. So you have to think about that. Negativity attracts negativity. Positivity attracts positivity. So you have to think about that as well. And that's, like I said before, children are watching that. When we run into challenges of our own, how do we handle those challenges? Do we give up? Or do we keep pushing to try and achieve that goal? They're watching that. I didn't really think about that so much until after my daughters became adults. We talk a lot, and we actually talk about things that went on when they were growing up. And one time, my middle daughter, Lisa, said, "Mom, I remember when you were working towards your degree, you used to go to the library all the time, and you would take us with you." And I never forgot that. And I'm saying, I never even realized that this was resonating so much with her. I talked to my oldest daughter one time, and when she was in high school, they were getting ready for graduation. And we'd always have these talks about not allowing yourselves to get pulled into situations that you know are not correct or not right. She says she had an instance where someone tried to get her to go to a party that wasn't being chaperoned. Now, initially, she thought it was going to be chaperoned, and we told her that it was okay for her to go. But then she later on found out that that wasn't the case. So she actually came back and told me, knowing that I was going to say, "Well, you know you can't go, right?" And she said, "Yeah, I know." And later on, she said, "I thought about it," and she said, "It wasn't worth it." So that made me feel really good to know that those kinds of conversations really did resonate with them over time. Sometimes you never really know until they become adults. Now, don't get me wrong. I made a bunch of mistakes myself as a parent. None of us are perfect. We try to do the best we possibly can. God has always been an important part of our lives. Still is, will always be. In fact, this book and the guide are his book, his guide. He gave me the words to write. Almost every word in here came from him. There were times when I didn't know what to say in a specific area of the chapter. And so I would say a prayer before I went to bed. And I would ask him to give me the words. He never failed. In fact, I talk about that at the end of the book. Whenever you ask for it and leave yourself open to the answer, you will get it. Now, say this too. It may not always come the way you expect it to come.
Okay.
But the important thing to remember is when it does come, it's the way it should be, not necessarily the way you wanted it to be.
Wow.
He knows better than we do.
Mm-hmm.
But if we leave ourselves open to him and listen to him, he will tell us what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, and how it needs to happen.
Okay.
But we have to be willing to follow that.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to do that all the time. Nobody's perfect, so I mess up too.
Yeah.
But this book is his.
Okay.
And so is that guy. He gave me the words to use to put in the book
Mm-hmm.
because I believe he wanted me to be his vessel to make sure that our children are cared for.
Yeah.
But not just our children,
Mm-hmm.
that we are caring for ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we can't care for them until we care for ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what led to the workshop.
Okay.
I thought about it and I said, the book and the guide by itself just aren't enough. How am I going to get this word out to especially the parents who are struggling and who really need some help and some support and some love?
Yeah.
They are still worthy. They may have done things that got them in trouble. They may have lived through lives in a situation that they had no control over, which is where some of them end up in that situation. But they're not throwaways, like some people might think. They are not. They're God's children, just like us.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt that it was important for me to find a way to use this, to work with them, to share with them, to show them that God still loves them. I love you. I want you to do well. I want you to be happy. I want your children to be happy. Let me help you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm doing with the book and the guide and the workshop.
Okay.
And I've been so blessed.
Okay.
So blessed. And I have to thank my friend Martina Daly. She and New Awakening Recovery Services have been a godsend to me.
Wow, that's good.
They really have.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to do this workshop, but I didn't know for sure how or when it was going to happen. And that's where God comes in again. I'm telling you, he has directed every step that I've made as far as this book is concerned. And Martina and I met actually through my husband and his husband, who he had worked with to start doing our lawn.
Okay.
You never know.
Yeah.
Anyway, for some reason, I felt moved to give him a copy of the book. I had just started getting the book out there at that point. I gave it to him and I said, take this home and read it and tell me what you think. He gave it to Martina and pushed her to call me.
Okay.
And the rest is history.
Wow.
That's how we got together. And it's been a whirlwind, powerful, God-driven experience ever since. It has led us, me, Martina, into directions that I don't think we would have even thought about had we not connected.
Okay.
And I just thank God, and I thank her, and I thank you. I thank all of New Awakening, anyone has anything to do with it, for helping me to do the things that I think God wants me to do. And because of that, we did a workshop that recently completed, and we got some really wonderful feedback from that, which led us to do another workshop that we're going to be starting, as a matter of fact, next week.
Oh, wow, that's good.
Yes, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to get started. And I do so much research, even with what I already have, because I found some more things that I want to add to it.
Okay.
So it's evolving as we go. And I just thank you for the opportunity to share that with whatever organizations might be interested in looking at this workshop. If you have a parenting program in your church, if you have a parenting program in your community center, we are open to working with any group.
How can they reach you? What's the information? How can they contact you?
They can reach me through my phone number, 205-470-9415. That is my phone number. They can reach me by email. My name, Doris Barren, one word, at the letter Y, mail.com. Send me an email. Let me know that you're interested. We can certainly talk to any organization that's doing things with their community. Our churches, if you have an organization program that focuses on parenting and their children, schools, the PTA, anybody that has the ability to influence our children in a positive way, we want to talk to you. We want to work together with you. And one of the reasons this is driving me so much now is because we're losing so many of our children for reasons that make no sense. Gun violence, you name it. They are collateral damage to the bad decisions that so many of our adults are making these days. These are decisions that cannot be reversed. You cannot continue to use a permanent solution for what often is a temporary problem that could have been worked out had you decided to take the time to think about it. And with that, I really want to thank you for providing me this time and this space to get the word out and hopefully reach others that are interested in really being that positive role model that our children so desperately deserve. Not just need, but deserve. So thank you so much.
Thank you for coming to Inspirational. And there you have it. Y'all need her, contact her. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Your Inspirational. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, all right? See you next time.